Well, my assumption, I suppose, is that there's not really going to be that much animal experimentation in Australia, and I wouldn't have thought it'd be that prevalent. It's going to be protected in some way. I mean, there's a lot of lobbying and agitation for protection of animals, always has been, and it's going to be regulated by some kind of law. I assume that there are going to be committees who oversight them. I think there's an ethics committee of some kind, isn't there, that checks on everything, makes sure that everything's done humanely. I mean, there's going to be the kinds of checks and balances and regulations to make sure that it's only done properly and it's only done when it's absolutely necessary.
Of course, animal experiments consume enormous financial and scientific resources, which is then unavailable to other research fields, some of which might potentially be more effective in trying to advance human healthcare. Although considerable financial and collateral human costs do exist, obviously the main costs involved in animal research are borne by the animals subjected to invasive procedures. The best estimates that we have come from 2005, and in that year 127 million animals were subjected to scientific procedures around the world. And Australia was number 4 on that list.
Surely there's a governing body that sort of ensures that there's no real damage to animals and that it's all monitored from a government perspective, and I'd like to think that they ultimately don't really suffer.
So how many of these experiments are invasive? In my book, The Costs and Benefits of Animal Experiments, I analysed animal use within Australia during a recent 4-year period, 2005 to 2009, which was the most recent year available at the time. Once we excluded purely observational animal use, which was done to match with European definitions of animal experiments and animals and so on, we found that 23 to 40% of all animal experiments were markedly invasive. So that means the animals were seriously harmed in terms of undergoing serious surgical procedures, highly invasive surgical procedures, undergoing major physiological challenges, having their DNA disrupted or being killed. So 23 to 40% of all non-observational animal use is markedly invasive. Now, the level of invasiveness is not often reported in national laboratory animal statistics, but it has been reported for Canada. When examining the figures for Canada over a recent decade, the proportion of procedures that were markedly invasive varied from around about 29 to 44% over the decade. So clearly a very sizable minority of all procedures are markedly invasive, that is causing serious harm or death to the animals. So how often are painkillers used? Well, again, painkiller usage is not often reported. Although the use of painkillers is adequate in many procedures, unfortunately it's not adequate in others, partly because of concerns, whether well-founded or otherwise, that drug use such as painkillers will alter experimental outcomes.